Did Jesus ever actually say, "I am God"? Or is that a sentence history placed in his mouth centuries later? Imagine standing in ancient Jerusalem. The air is thick with dust, incense, and fear. A man speaks in riddles, parables, and silences. Crowds follow him, not because he demands worship, but because something awakens inside them when he speaks. Now ask yourself this: if Jesus truly declared himself God, why did no one fall to their knees immediately? Why did no Roman record accuse him of claiming divinity? Why did his own followers argue for centuries about who he really was? Here is the uncomfortable truth few sermons explore. Jesus never spoke English. He never said the word God the way we mean it today. And the language he did use tells a very different story, one that threatens institutions but liberates the individual. Tonight, we are not here to destroy faith. We are here to remove the veil. Because sometimes the greatest deception is not a lie, but a translation. The language. Jesus spoke, and what was lost in translation? Jesus did not speak Greek, he did not speak Latin, and he certainly did not speak the English of modern Bibles. Jesus spoke Aramaic, the language of villagers, mystics, and desert sages. A poetic tongue where one word could mean breath, spirit, and life force all at once. Now here is where the fracture begins. The Gospels were written decades later in Greek, a language of philosophers, empires, and rigid definitions. Greek demands precision. Aramaic invites experience. When Aramaic mystical phrases were forced into Greek grammar, something living became something legal. Biblical scholar Neil Douglas Klotz, a leading authority on Aramaic Jesus studies, explains that Aramaic words function like prisms, not bricks. They refract meaning. They do not lock it in place. For example, the Aramaic word Allah does not mean God as a distant male ruler in the sky. It points to sacred unity, the animating presence within all things. Another word, bar, commonly translated as son, also means child, offspring, one who springs forth. So when Jesus says, "I am the Son of God," in Aramaic, this does not declare exclusivity, it declares origin. He is saying, "I arise from the divine source," not above humanity, but from the same ground as all of it. Yet when Aramaic was translated into Greek, Bar Allah became monogenes theou, only begotten Son of God. Suddenly, what was once shared became singular. What was once accessible became untouchable. And the message quietly shifted from, "Remember who you are," to "Worship who I am." This is not theology. This is linguistic alchemy. And the most misunderstood phrase of all is still waiting for us. When people hear Jesus say, "Before Abraham was, I am," they are told this is the moment he claimed to be God. But this interpretation rests on a fragile assumption that "I am" was a personal title. It was not. In the ancient Semitic world, "I am" described a state of presence, not an identity badge. The phrase comes from the Hebrew, Ihye Asher Ehye, spoken to Moses at the burning bush, a phrase mistranslated as, "I am that I am." Biblical scholars like Martin Buber and Abraham Joshua Heschel explain that this phrase actually means, "I will be what I will be," or "I am becoming." It describes being itself, existence in motion. Now here is what most sermons never mention. In Aramaic, Jesus would have said something closer to Anahaya, "I exist in the eternal now." This was not a declaration of superiority. It was an invitation into presence. Jesus was not saying, "Look at me." He was saying, "Enter this state." This aligns perfectly with his most radical teaching. The kingdom of God is within you. Luke 17:21. If the divine were locked inside one man, this statement would be meaningless. But if I am is a state of awakened consciousness, suddenly everything makes sense. This is why Jesus never says, "Worship me to reach God." Instead, he says, "Follow me." Not toward a throne, but toward an inner condition. Like a mirror polished clean, he reflected what humanity could become. And that is precisely why the next misunderstanding was inevitable. Why Jesus said Father instead of God. If Jesus wanted to declare himself God, he had a perfectly acceptable word available. He did not use it. Instead, again and again, he chose the word Father. Not the Roman Deus, not the Greek Theos, not the Hebrew Elohim. In Aramaic, Jesus says Abba. This word does not mean father in a formal or royal sense. It means source, origin, beloved parent, even that which gives me life. Scholar Joachim Jeremias, one of the most respected New Testament historians, emphasized that Abba was shockingly intimate. No rabbi addressed the divine this way in public. It was relational, experiential, internal. When Jesus says, "I and the Father are one," he is not declaring monopoly. He is describing alignment. And then, almost provocatively, he adds, "The Father is greater than I," John 14:28. A strange statement for someone claiming equality as a literal deity, but perfectly coherent for someone describing union without identity. Think of a flame and the fire it comes from. The flame is real. The fire is real. But the flame is not the totality of the fire. Jesus embodies the connection, not the entirety. This is why he teaches others to pray, "Our Father." Not my Father alone. Our. A shared source. A shared origin. A shared inner kingdom. And now we arrive at the most suppressed idea of all. Jesus did not come to replace humanity with himself. He came to reveal humanity to itself. The way, not the religion. In the earliest years after Jesus' death, his followers did not form a religion. They were called the Way. A path, not a creed. A journey inward, not a membership card. Why? Because Jesus' teachings were practical instructions for awakening, not metaphysical claims to worship. He spoke of doing, seeing, and becoming, not of titles or thrones. Scholar Elaine Pagels, in her book The Gnostic Gospels, explains that early Christian texts emphasize experience over dogma. The I am of Jesus was never meant to establish hierarchy. It was a mirror to the divine spark in every human. Yet as Greek translations spread, the subtleties faded. Bar Allaha became Son of God. Anahaya became I am God. Abba became a formal deity, distant and unapproachable. Institutions crystallized a living path into rigid doctrine. The Way became a church, and the flame of awakening became a symbol to worship from afar. But the original invitation remains, hidden in plain sight. The kingdom of God is within you, not somewhere beyond, not in a temple, not in a creed, but within the silent chambers of your own being. Jesus' true words were never about claiming divinity. They were about revealing it. In you, in me, in every human. This is the secret the translations almost erased. The man we call Jesus was not a God to be worshipped. He was a doorway, a map for the inner journey, and the path remains open for those willing to walk it.